And something that you said really reminded me of like when you talked about how there's the Protestant work ethic being displayed physically if you're physically
Yeah.
fit. It's that. It's also the fact that you're, as you also, I'm kind of reiterating, you're wealthy enough to have the time to do this. You're also
Hmm.
wealthy enough to probably go to a boutique fitness club like Equinox or Lifetime. Or the third thing here too is I've read about this in connection to like analyzing the Kardashians and their social what they kind of epitomize about our culture is that there's this new era of like beauty and fitness where displaying the work and money that goes into your body is a big part of the beauty standard, which is why
Hmm.
when people say, oh, they look fake, that's kind of the point because it's showing I have the money and the funds to make my face contoured in a way through surgery, through injections, whatever, that can also display my wealth. It's almost alien or otherworldly, and that is, I think, another extension of the performance of like making capitalism be a part of your body.
Yeah, you're so right. And it's so interesting. Like, obviously, like professional, like image people for a long time have kind of exercised, but like well into I would say the early 2000s, it was kind of like a behind the scenes thing that you did. Like, Jane Fonda didn't want to record her first VHS tape in part because she's like, I'm a movie star and it's very vulnerable to be like working out on a VHS tape. Like, what is that? I'm paraphrasing her, but now we don't have that. It's part of the appeal to kind of show the work. And I think you're right that it like does cohere with all of, Ozempic or the injections or all of the different kinds of chemical interventions that people make and surgical ones. But I do think I haven't quite figured out the way this is going to play out now or in the future. But there's always been a real tension between like people who get their appearance like through exercise, which we tend to think is like legitimate because you're like, you've got the willpower to do it versus this quote unquote easy way out of, wearing a corset or fashion. A lot of health, a lot of fitness proponents would say like, you don't know what really lies underneath like that, those dresses or those
Mm.
corsets or whatnot. And so I think there's a little bit of that discourse around the surgery, although you're right, like it does take work and money and pain to do any of it if it's not the pain that we conventionally associate with exercise.
Yeah, and it is in terms of like the gyms in and of themselves, it also shows how like choosing between say going to Equinox or Planet Fitness or Blink, which we have here in New York. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that also is a moment of class stratification and class anxiety in and of itself, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, all of those places signify very different income levels. I do think it's really notable, though, that how expansive this sector is. And the fact that even, with the pandemic, like when people thought brick and mortar was dead, it is not dead. It's basically back. And we have expansion at the kind of very low end, that's Planet Fitness and Blink, and also at the very high end. Like the high end, to me, I can't believe it. The price points keep getting higher and higher and higher. Like there seems to be no ceiling
Yeah.
as to what people are willing to do in terms of luxury and equating luxury with fitness.
Yeah. Lastly, I mean, I am curious about what you think about the personalization of some of the fitness equipment that's being used, where it's now moved from you can become a part of this club and that can be your class signifier if you're an Equinox member, to now you need to also have it in your home and you can be, this isn't about community anymore. This is about like I mean, I know that that was pandemic focused as well, but these are products that are further atomizing and making them extremely private outside of the public sphere.
Yeah, it's really hard to like say it represents one thing, the kind of home fitness trend. I think like on the one hand, yeah, there is the kind of like, it's like the hyper atomization. There's not even the kind of like unexpected conversation in the locker room or with the front desk person or the maybe not getting the spot that you want. Like you kind of take away that third place socializing and you just have like, I want my playlist and my person at my time. It's like the Uberification of exercise. And I think that, yeah, that signifies all the troubling social atomization that we're talking about. On the other hand, at-home exercise has also always been a real engine of inclusivity for people who don't feel comfortable going to gyms, for people with childcare challenges, for people with a range of disabilities. Like, so I hesitate to say it just represents one thing, but one thing I do think is interesting is that for much of American history, at-home exercise devices were always sold as this is cheap and like no one will know you have it. You can hide it away. Now it's like the Peloton is like a freaking piece of furniture that people like show off, and I think that that's interesting in terms of it not being something like you wouldn't want people to know you do, but rather something that people still kind of peacock about, even if it's at home.
Well, really fascinating read. Natalia Mehlman Petrzela, associate professor of history at the New School, author of the book called Fit Nation: The Gains and Pains of America's Exercise Obsession. We'll put a link to the book in the description everywhere you're listening to or watching this, and at majority.fm. Thanks so much, Natalia. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.